Hey, folks, big news. You have about 11 hours and 56 minutes to take advantage of this offer. 420 is come and gone, but that does not mean that our friends at sunsetlakecbd.com are done celebrating. I mean, really,
they're always celebrating.
I have a feeling they celebrate quite a bit. But for this next 12 hours, there's only 12 hours left. When you check out with the code 420, you're going to save 30% site-wide. Hemp flower, gummies, coffee, tinctures, even their new Vape cartridges, all for 30% off. Even better, when you spend over $100, they throw in a jar of 20 count of their microdose Vibe gummies for free. Microdose of... Here's the best part. 4.2% of the sales will be donated to the Last Prisoner Project, which is an organization dedicated to reforming the nation's unjust cannabis laws and supporting those who've been negatively impacted by prohibition. And the majority report is going to match that. So ultimately, 8.4% of the sales... I did that all over my head. Of the sales from this sale are going to go towards supporting the Last Prisoner Project. This is a great time to check out their Goodnight Oil tincture, which I use on a nightly basis to help me go to sleep, or some of their pre-rolls or flour that you can mix with other things that you might enjoy. For me, a pre-roll after a big dinner, like on a night out, that's for someone.
It's a treat.
That's for someone like me, a big treat. But they have all sorts of great products: salves, lotions, focus gummies, relax gummies, all of it. And right now, you can try it and see what you like. 30% off. Head right over to sunsetlakecbd.com. Use the coupon code 420. You'll save 30% site-wide. The sale ends tonight at midnight Eastern time. That's April 22nd at midnight. See their site for additional terms and restrictions. And now time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Brendan Benedict, antitrust and commercial litigation lawyer, who's covering antitrust cases for the blog Big Tech on Trial, about Big Tech on Trial, the cases that could break up Google and Facebook, or Meta. Meanwhile, chaos reigns at the Pentagon as it's revealed Hegseth's party chat info came from a general secure message.
Never drunk text.
Meanwhile, ICE detaining a Harvard scientist who may have a key to changing cancer diagnostics. Trump attacks Jerome Powell and sinks the Dow to Great Depression-style one-day drop. Speaking of dropping, Trump's approval rating continues its fall. Bukele proposes a prisoner swap with Maduro for Venezuelan deportees. Mahmoud Khalil's wife gives birth while he remains in ICE detention for absolutely no reason. Got salmonella? FDA suspends milk tests amid Doge cuts. The DOE to refer all student loan defaults to debt collection, seeking wage garnishment of up to 5.3 million Americans.
This is right-wing economic populism for you.
EPA to cancel grants protecting children from the toxic chemicals. That's called MAHA. And Mississippi declares April 2025 as Confederate Heritage Month. All this and more on today's Majority Report. As soon as they didn't do it until I left the state.
Oh, that's good.
Yep.
They waited it out.
Yep. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is
Newsday Tuesday.
And we're going to be talking to Benedict, who is actually in the Facebook or the Meta trial right now, and he'll pop out to give us an update on what's happened with Google. They lost an antitrust case last week on their ad tech, and they have moved into the second part of their search monopoly case, which they lost in terms of liability, and they're moving on to the remedy, which could mean Google is broken up. And the FTC is looking for a similar thing, one suspects, with Facebook. We'll be talking to this attorney about that. In the meantime, still have 4 House Democrats in El Salvador seeking Abrego Garcia's release. And here is one of those congressmen. I think he is live in El Salvador, Maxwell Frost, on with Will Cain. Cain, I think, is either in the Fox studios or
Home studio is a total possibility.
Oh, I was actually thinking in wherever it is where you bring what you owe for your Faustian bargain. I'm not sure where that is. I don't know if you actually got to go to hell, or do you go to, like, there's a drive-up window where you can just deposit whatever your soul or whatever it is.
Right.
But here is Will Cain with Maxwell Frost.
But before we move forward, I have to stop down with what you just said. Donald Trump's made a statement about wanting to deport American citizens. Do you have that in front of you? I've not seen that statement. Can you please quote where that comes from, that he would like to deport American citizens?
He said it in the Oval Office. He said he wants to go for homegrown snacks, people born and raised in the United States. Citizens.
Do you have anything?
And then
do you have anything besides your word on that? I have not seen that. So beyond your word, do you have the source of that? I would love to see that clip or that transcript of him saying he wants to deport American citizens.
There is a clip online. I encourage people to just
pause it right now.
Trump.
I'll tell you what's happening. If Frost is down there with any aides, which I imagine he's there probably traveling with one person from his office, that person is right now on their phone sending the producer a clip, because the idea that that this comes as some sort of shock to, I mean, just even an average person, but a news person, this gives you just a slight insight into what they are shoveling over at Fox.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that you don't know this, there are multiple on the record, on video, versions of Trump saying this. And the idea that Will Cain is oblivious to this, and I genuinely think he is oblivious, because you can tell how cocky he's getting about it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's your word.
You're being a little bit hysterical. Do you have Trump derangement syndrome, repeating the words that have come out of Donald Trump's mouth multiple times?
I notice you're sitting there talking. Is there any chance that maybe pieces of paper have come out of your mouth that will show a citation or something like that? Why don't I see a floating footnote that's clickable in front of your face? Dude, you're the news guy.
You should know this.
You're the guy working at a multi-million-dollar news organization.
Are the people that are supposed to be speaking into his earpiece, are they at lunch or something?
Exactly. Will, wait a second. Will, hold on. Sorry, eating a sandwich. Go ahead.
I would love to see that clip or that transcript of him saying he wants to deport American citizens.
There is a clip online. I encourage people to just Google Donald Trump homegrown, deporting homegrown criminals. It is something he said in the Oval Office.
Well, you understand how television works. We have these fancy earpieces. I like to get very few instructions from my staff while you and I have a conversation, but we are in search of that clip as we speak. So as you and I have this conversation in the next several minutes, we'll be looking for that clip. But let's keep digging in.
You know what he's saying there is that they're in his earpiece saying, get off this, we do have it. Because when he's saying, I want to be able to conduct this interview without hearing all this noise.
100%.
Yes.
That is him whining like a little baby.
Yep.
I'm overwhelmed.
It's your fault. It's your fault.
Too many senses. I can't hear. I'm sensitive to that kind of thing. Hearing two different audio streams, it can be very overwhelming.
Stop
also,
calling me an idiot.
If you're
Stop
dealing with
calling
the
me an
panic
idiot.
of like getting something so wrong on air to a member of Congress.
So this is after the break.
Okay, so they go to break, but before they do, they go to break, and apparently somebody at Fox has the internet, and they know how to use it, folks. So watch out.
I challenged him, by the way, on the idea that President Trump wanted to deport homegrown citizens. Here is the clip referenced by Maxwell Frost from the Oval Office of President Trump talking about homegrown criminals.
I'd like to go a step further. I mean, I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters.
I saw that, incidentally. I saw that in, what was the name of that? Warriors. It was a documentary about New York City called Warriors. And one of them out there goes, Warriors, come out to play. And then they hit a lady with a baseball bat.
It's one thing to hit a lady with a baseball bat when she's looking, but when you don't even give her a chance to react.
Right from behind. Go ahead.
That push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country.
And he goes on right after that to say, but we have to obey the law. It will always be to obey the law. After years of very fine people, among other hoaxes, I'm suspicious of any Democrat quoting President Trump in full context. And I make no apologies, none, on not being able to know or recall that specific clip, because it doesn't reinforce my fever dream Handmaid's Tale vision of America, where Lily, who reads The Bulwark on the Upper West Side, is about to be deported right after Kilmer Abrego Garcia. President Donald Trump was clearly talking about obeying the law. I'm doubtful the law would allow him to deport homegrown criminals. But it's a far cry, again, from the Handmaid's Tale vision of the next, after Abrego Garcia, is you.
Well, I like the fact that he became indignant because he was actually shown to be 100% wrong. But he's more than 100% wrong. He's at least 200% wrong, because here's the second time in the Oval Office. Like, I don't know how much more, and we also know Donald Trump.
We're in the Handmaid's Tale set?
Donald Trump would never attempt to do anything that was against the law, except for ignore a court's order to turn the plane around from the last the group of people, Garcia being one of them, sent to El Salvador.
Except for the illegal thing that he's saying he wants to do in that very sentence. That's the fun thing. He wants to follow the law, except for the words that are coming out of his mouth, which is in clear violation of the Constitution and
the whole
law.
reason Bukele was there in the first place was because they're saying, actually, we're not going to follow up on that law.
Here is Bukele right now, or I should say in this clip with Donald Trump, where Donald Trump, and I'm sure you'll hear the words, as long as it's in the law.
The mandate of people wanted to change everything. And they wanted they love it. No, I feel supportive. I want to do criminals next. They said homegrowns are next. Homegrowns. You got to build about 5 more places. Yeah, that's great. All right.
Yeah, the homegrowns are next.
That was on a hot mic.
Well, no, but he turns to the press and says homegrown.
Oh, I guess that's right.
Homegrown's next.
Yeah.
You got to build 5 more prisons. And then, of course, we have really cleverly cut out the part where he said, of course, that's subject to whatever the law is in this country. I love the Constitution so much. I mean, I think there's another clip. He said it in another interview, but only if it's, within the law. But I keep bringing it up. It's weird. It's weird. I think there's some questions about the law. Also, I'm only going to run for a 3rd term in office if it's within the law. Or actually, maybe I actually won the 2020 election in a legal way.
Exactly.
Amazing.
It's pretty great. Good on Maxwell Frost. Good on, I think it's Robert Garcia, the representative from California, who went down there also and is speaking specifically about the hairdresser who I think is a teenager still, who was taken from California. So I was wondering, where is Adam Schiff? Where is Alex Padilla on this? The senators from California. I mean, yes, where are they? But at least they have a representative from California going down there to stand up for his constituent, and we should be seeing that across the board for pro-Palestine political detainees as well.
Let me just one more point about Will Cain, which was fascinating. Understand what we just watched. I mean, aside from the fact that, the substance of the clip, but we watched him there indignantly question whether Frost was telling the truth, because what Frost was suggesting was so out of bounds, was so in line with some Handmaid's Tale version of reality. I want to make it clear that Frost has no idea what he's talking about. He's completely making this up because that would be so out of bounds. And then he comes back and he goes,
from the break,
despite the fact that the reality was 180 degrees from what I said. And they only showed 1 clip. They could have shown 3 because there's 3 on record. And we know that they've also had conversations, but there's been other reporting aside from the fact that Trump has said it out loud. He still then says, just the fact that exists proves my point.
Right.
They're completely out of their mind.
It's actually your fault I was incredulous about this thing that happened in the news that everyone saw.
Because of the Trump derangement syndrome. Everyone there is inherently hysterical, regardless of what we say.
The 3rd clip, I'm being told, was on, what's that? Stop talking in my ear. Air Force One.
Ah.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
In a couple of minutes, we're going to be talking to Brendan Benedict on the cases that may break up Google and Meta. Apple may have a problem too. But first, one of our sponsors today is Nutrafol. Years ago, we had some Nutrafol in the office because they wanted to know if we were interested in them sponsoring the program. We don't sponsor products that we don't use, or we don't have people sponsor the show if we don't use the product, or I guess that's basically it.
Right.
So we didn't. I had asked. I didn't feel like I needed. I had an issue with thinning hair. Michael, I thought did, but he did not. We had a disagreement about that. That's okay. He didn't want to take it. And then several years ago, I started taking it. It was around the office. I bought some more, and they came back and they wanted to sponsor us. And I was like, this time, yeah. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. You can see thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. Thinning hair, different for men and women, so one size fits all approach to hair growth doesn't cut it. Nutrafol has multiple formulas for men and women that are tailored to different life stages, such as postpartum or menopause, lifestyle factors such as plant-based lifestyle or aging, which is something I have. And we both know women who have used Nutrafol with great results. It's physician formulated, 100% drug-free ingredients. Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting key root causes of thinning. No pun intended. Stress, hormones, aging, like I say, nutrition, lifestyle, metabolism through whole body health. Start your hair growth journey with Nutrafol for a limited time. Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping. When you go to Nutrafol.com, enter the promo code TMR10. That's TMR10. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code TMR10. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code TMR10. We'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. Also sponsoring the program today, another product that I've been using for years and years, and that is fast-growing trees. And I have trees from fast-growing trees that are now actually quite large and provide apples.
Ooh, which kind?
Arkansas Black.
Very nice.
I think I got some the crisp. What the
Honeycrisp.
Honeycrisp.
Sorry, I put you on the spot.
I know. I may also have some Pixie Crunch. Did you know Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S. with more than 10,000 different kinds of plants and over 2 million happy customers in the U.S.? Here's the thing with Fast Growing Trees. They will ship you, I don't know if the trees actually grow faster, but they will ship you like trees that are like 5-6 feet tall. And sometimes will actually bear fruit within that season if you plant them. But you get such a huge variety of trees, of shrubs, of grass, of bushes. They've got it all. And you no longer have to put it in the back of your Subaru, get dirt all over the place. You don't have to go to a big box store and get 2 different varieties of apples. It's amazing. And the best thing is you don't need to have a yard or a lot of space. You can grow a lemon tree, you can grow an avocado tree, you can grow an olive tree or a fig tree, which I highly recommend. Very easy to propagate too once you get one. Inside your home, on top of a wide variety of houseplants that are available, the experts at Fast Growing Trees curate thousands of plants so you can find the perfect fit for your specific climate. You all have a growing zone. In fact, you have a growing zone that has an A, B, and C to it. And it's probably changed over the past 10 years. You don't have to drive around to nurseries. Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to order online. Your plants are shipped to your door in 1 to 2 days. Doesn't matter whether you're looking to add privacy or shade or natural beauty. For your yard, Fast Growing Trees has in-house experts that'll help you make the right decision, and they'll give you growing and care advice available 24/7. They'll talk to you about soil type. They'll talk to you about landscape design, how to take care of your plants, all of it. You don't need a green thumb for this. This spring, they have the best deals online, up to half on select plants and other deals. Listeners to our show get an additional 15% off their first purchase when using the code MAJORITY at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com. Using the code MAJORITY at checkout, fastgrowingtrees.com. Code MAJORITY. Offer valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Check it out. Oh, the fast growing refers to the speed at which they arrive at your home. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. We'll put that description in the podcast and YouTube description. No word? Okay. We're still waiting on Brendan Benedict. He's actually literally in the
courthouse.
In the courthouse as we speak. So we will check that out. Let's go to this for a moment. In the background, humming against this backdrop of all of the Trump immigration authoritarian fascist moves that his thugs are making at ICE, in the background of the Pentagon in total chaos because of Foster Brooks, Pete Hegseth, who's the nobody knows who Foster Brooks is anymore, the Secretary of Defense. Google it. You'll see that was funny.
I told you, I watched some old school stuff back in the day growing
exactly.
up. So
Dennis Miller's retired, so I'm doing that. What is also happening on Capitol Hill is the Republicans are attempting to figure out how they are going to pass a bill in reconciliation, which means that you can't filibuster it in the Senate, how they're going to pass a bill that is going to provide trillions of dollars of tax cuts over the next 10 years to wealthy people. And the way they're going to be able to do that, if they can do it, is to find enough cuts in the budget that will satisfy their desire to offset, and they have to, if they're going to use reconciliation, offset these tax cuts. Now, one of the things that they've done, if they decided they're going to try anyways, to call the baseline where the tax cuts are now, as opposed to where there will be if there is no legislation. These tax cuts run out. That's the law. They don't exist past 2026 or the end of 2025. And that's the law. Usually when they calculate these things, they have to go back to where it's going to be before the new law is passed. They're attempting to change that accounting trick. The other thing they got to do is figure out how they're going to cut, in one instance, $800 billion from under the auspices of the committee that oversees Medicaid. And here is a clue.
FMAP is the federal medical assistance percentage, and it ranges from 50% in the country to 76.9%. Now, when the Dems expanded Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act, they made that percentage match 90-10. So the federal government is paying 90% of the Medicaid expansion. And so what we have talked about is moving that 90% level of the expansion back towards the more traditional levels of 50 to approximately 80% instead of the 90-10, 90% being federal, 10% being state match. And nobody would be kicked off of Medicaid as long as the governors decided that they wanted to continue to fund the program. And so we are going to ask the states to pick up and pay some additional percentage of the Medicaid percentage.
Okay. So I just want people to understand what Austin Scott, this is a representative from Georgia, is referencing here. When Medicaid is a federally funded program where states have the ability to deploy that money in a way that they want to. When the ACA passed, part of it was an expansion of Medicaid beyond up to 133% of poverty. So you can make 1/3 more than what the federal poverty line is. And I think the federal poverty line is moved up, but I have a feeling it's somewhere around $18,000 per individual. I don't remember exactly what it is for a family. Maybe you can look that up. And 33% more. Now, you'll recall the Supreme Court said not all states are forced to take it, which is absurd.
Yep.
And the argument that all the Republican states that balked against it was, well, we're only paying, like the federal government is only picking up 90%.
90%, yeah.
Well, in some instances, I think it's the first couple of years were 95%, and then it dropped to 90% of the cost of this expansion. So we're not interested in it. Now, over time, most of those states, I think we still have like 5 or 6 extant.
40 states have expanded, I believe, Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act.
Oh, maybe it's 10.
And what was incredible about that is that the uninsured rates basically were halved by the expansion of Medicaid. So it was something like 14%, and then went down to 7.5%.
And so the federal government picks up the vast majority of that tab. But what's happening now when they drop it to 90%, this guy's trying to play it off like it's going to be up to the governors.
Right.
And so they will have to deal with the politics of cutting their own Medicaid if they don't want to add that money. But Emma has done a little research and has found that it's not always going to be the case.
It wasn't. Yeah, I mean, the Democrats are saying this too. But there are a lot of states that have trigger laws that if basically the federal matching drops below 90%, that cuts automatically start to happen. That includes Arkansas, Indiana, Montana, New Hampshire, Utah. In Arizona, if the federal match drops below 80%, which could be their target, that also triggers those automatic cuts. This could also affect people in Virginia and North Carolina and other states as well. But the Affordable Care Act expansion, Medicaid expansion, just hit 40 states. And if this affects, say, I don't know, if it gives the excuse for red state governors like in Texas and in Florida and in Georgia, around 3/4 of adults that are in the coverage gap are concentrated in those states, although I'm not sure if they expanded. So give me a second on that front. But the point is that this is a backdoor way to cut Medicaid expansion.
And again, this is the way that they're going to cut Medicaid.
Yeah.
And they're going to kick people off of Medicaid.
Right.
That's
Sorry.
to
correct myself, those are the people, that's where most of the uninsured people are in those states. So those states haven't expanded. But for the states I listed before that, those are the ones that where there could be that automatic cut that's triggered.
And that's how they're going to find at least a big chunk of their cuts. And they'll know it too, because they're going to drop it to below, even if they drop it to 89%, maybe they'll drop it to 85%. They'll count that 5%, but you also know that they will count all of the expansion. Right? Because the program in those, 8 states, it's not just like you're going to lose essentially a third of the people in those states are all going to immediately lose their coverage unless the states affirmatively re-up to pay more.
Right. Right. And it was so hard won to get to even 40 states adopting Medicaid expansion. We still haven't gotten those 10 other states since the passage of the Affordable Care Act, and it's been obviously over a decade at this point. So this is a way to roll back some of the best parts of the Affordable Care Act. Over 20 million people got Medicaid under ACA expansion. And these are broadly lower income adults who have no access to health care otherwise. So.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Brendan Benedict. We'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Pleasure to welcome to the program Brendan Benedict, antitrust and commercial litigation lawyer, who also covers antitrust cases for the blog Big Tech on Trial. That's a division of Matt Stoller's Substack. Big money, I think it is. I just slipped my mind. Brendan, thanks for joining us. I know that you are right now outside of a courthouse, having been sitting in, I think it's on day 5 of the Meta trial?
Day 6.
Day 6. Let's start with Google. I know that there's only so much that you can talk about that because you some of your work has touched on that case a little bit, but let's do some broad strokes on what's happening with Google, and then we'll get to Meta. There's really, we have two sort of almost concurrent actions against Google and that are at different places in the course of their trials. Why don't you tell us about the ad tech monopoly trial that Google was just found apparently liable of, I guess, a week ago?
Yeah, that's right. And thanks, Sam. Hi, Emma. Thanks for having me. So There's two big major federal antitrust cases going on against Google, and Google's lost both of those cases at the liability phase. The one that you referred to challenges Google's advertising technology platform, and that was in the Eastern District of Virginia, and that's the ruling that we got last week that Google monopolized one of the markets that was defined in that case. And then here in the courthouse behind me in Washington, D.C., there's a second proceeding starting this week that's going to look at remedies for the Google search case, which Google lost earlier.
Okay, so just so that people understand, in these type of cases, there's essentially two big chapters. One is the liability. That's whether they are essentially guilty, for lack of a better term, for me anyways, as a non-lawyer, of maintaining in this case, Google is guilty of maintaining a monopoly in search ads in an uncompetitive manner. And so now the remedy, what is the government's remedy that they have proposed in that case?
Sure, it's a number of things here in the Google search case. Probably the headline grabber is that Google should divest the Chrome browser because that makes up a large point of access for maintaining the monopoly in Google search. About 35% of Google search results, Google searches originate from the Chrome browser. But there's other provisions that go with that too, so preventing Google from entering into exclusive agreements to use only Google search to the exclusion of competing search engines. Also, some proposed terms around information sharing, so that Google isn't just prohibited from doing the conduct that it did before, but now it has to do something extra to really remedy its position in the market and give its competitor.
Hold on, it sounds like there's a little bit of a hurricane there. Are you good?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's much better. Sorry.
So anyway, we're talking about how there's multiple prongs here to what the government is seeking. Some of it is purely to stop Google from doing the same behavior, but other parts of its proposed remedy go beyond that to really undo the fruits of it and put competitors in a position where they can actually compete.
How and just in more and so that we're staying on somewhat of a broad level with Google because of some of your conflicts. When the government is seeking a remedy in this way, they're looking to undo the original sin. They're looking to undo maybe some of the fruits of that original sin. But largely, this is about creating a remedy to make sure that these things are not an issue going forward. Can you just sort of flesh that out for us?
Sure, yeah, and that's one of the things that's been teed up in the opening statements here in the remedies phase of the Google search trial. So I think Google's view is that the remedies really have to be matched to specific pieces of conduct that violates the law, but the government has a broader view. Once it's won its liability case, it can get remedies that if it weren't otherwise ordered by the court, wouldn't be something that violates the antitrust laws. But now that Google did, it really has to suffer the consequences of that to put the market back in a position that it would have been in had competition been allowed. And really the key thing here is AI, and that's what a lot of the proceedings are focused on now, trying to make sure that the next generation of innovators is able to make it out of the garage, can start up and compete against the big players who are now scrambling on AI, and Google search data gives it, pretty overwhelming advantage in building its AI product. So that's going to have to, be part of the remedy so that we can unleash innovation going forward.
How sensitive is the government to the prospect of AI in some way replacing search?
I think that's a big part of this case. I think what's interesting in the case the government is making, and some of this was discovery that actually happened after the Google liability trial. There's been more depositions, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, more documents on this subject. So the government is very much focused on it, but it wants to make sure that once you peek under the hood of the AI, that there's actually new players in there. And so Google has an AI product called Gemini, but what the government's opening statement showed is that a lot of what looks like Gemini is actually just Google search that's been rebranded as Gemini. And so you could see how, Google's dominance of the search market then can help it carry forward and, now take over this AI market.
Could there be retroactive action with the Gemini AI product if it's determined that basically illegal monopolistic practices and data that was culled from that contributed to its growth?
Yeah, it could be. I'm not totally up to speed on how much that's a focus, but I think it's definitely what the parties are disputing. What most of the remedies phase is here is focused on products like Gemini and the broader AI space.
Okay, let's turn to, and so how long, how long will this remedy phase of the first Google monopoly trial last? And then when will the remedy phase of the ad tech monopolization trial begin?
So both good questions. I think the remedy phase for Google search, I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but I would ballpark, probably 4 or 5 weeks of testimony. There's a lot of witnesses there. As far as ad tech, I think they're still figuring that out. We just got the liability ruling last week. Google has already signaled that it plans to appeal that ruling, but that appeal probably won't happen until we get further along in the remedies phase. So I don't think anything's been scheduled yet in the Google ad tech case, but we're keeping our eyes peeled for it.
And if I remember correctly, and I wonder as we pivot to the Meta case, Google really tried to not have a lot of information disseminated during this trial. Is that, am I remembering that correctly? And is Meta doing a similar thing?
Yeah, that's right. So, I could talk about Meta's example because that just happened a couple weeks ago, where the New York Times actually intervened in the FTC's trial to break up Meta, seeking a regular disclosure schedule for exhibits that are introduced and shown in open court. Meta fought that. They didn't want to agree to the New York Times disclosure schedule. Originally, they took the position that the public shouldn't be able to see entire documents. They should only be able to see the excerpts of documents that are actually spoken aloud in court. So the judge ruled against them on that, and we're getting exhibits now posted to a public Dropbox 2 days after they're admitted into evidence in court. So that's a good win for access. I still think, under the terms of the order, where Meta uploads exhibits, it has been using close to the full 48 hours before it puts exhibits up that it has to. And I think, that's just interesting if you kind of zoom out and think about what are Meta's odds in this trial. They say they have a really strong case, but it's a case that they don't want to tell the world about and don't want the world to see all the exhibits on. So I think, you have to keep that in mind when you evaluate how good their case is.
Why do they put it up 48 hours? It seems to me if you got to put them up, does it really make a difference that it's 48 hours later, or is that actually does that actually make a difference? Like people just don't, it's one thing to sort of get them in real time so you can come in the next day, or at least as a citizen and follow the case and know that these documents are there. Is there an advantage, I guess I should say, to putting them up 48 hours later as opposed to 6 hours later?
Yeah, I think, the parties agreed to this. It was a stipulation that the court entered, and I think the idea was that this would give them time to evaluate confidentiality. Although, I think a lot of that confidentiality evaluation happens before they're even introduced in court. So, I think the effect of it has been it makes it a little more difficult for reporters and folks like myself who are following along to at least show our readers, this is the actual email that was introduced. So it kind of, messes with the press cycle because we're getting stories out before we have a transcript, before we have copies of the exhibits. And then a couple of days later, that cycle has sort of ended and you've moved on to the next day. So
right.
It's a little bit frustrating, but I think what the court has done, which is very positive, is it's opened up dedicated media rooms, both for the Google search remedies phase and for the FTC Meta trial, and they've been well attended, and so folks have been able to, report live from the courthouse.
So what is the FTC's contention regarding Meta?
Sure. So it's really a two-part case. The first part is that Meta is a monopolist in what it calls a personal social networking market. And then the second part of that case is that Meta unlawfully maintained that monopoly through its acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp.
Right. And can you go back a little bit in time to talk about those acquisitions? Because it's been a while, but people may not remember that, like, Instagram, when it was coming up in particular, was a major competitor to Facebook before Facebook, now Meta, acquired it.
That's right. Yeah. And we've seen a lot of evidence to that effect. So Facebook acquires Instagram in 2012. It acquires WhatsApp in 2014. That's $1 billion and $19 billion, respectively. So big deals. At the time, it does go through a merger review process. And the Federal Trade Commission, the Department of Justice, they didn't do anything to hold that deal up. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't sue later. And that's part of what the first part of the case was about was, can the government bring this case now that it's been, more than a decade since the deal's closed? And the answer is yes. If you're a monopolist, the government can get an injunction to break you up, and it never signed off on those deals. It just declined to take action back at that time. And to the point about Instagram being a competitor, a putative competitor, we've certainly seen, a lot of evidence early on in the case, especially last week, specifically emails from Mark Zuckerberg himself, where he's worried about Instagram and also WhatsApp becoming competitors of Facebook in social networking by sort of building out from their feature set that they had already. And, some of the language is pretty incriminating. I mean, one of the emails...
Brendan, let me just stop you for 1 second and ask you just to take a step to your left or to your right, because you're breaking up just a little bit. But I want...
And we want to hear this answer.
I want to hear this, but and just so that people understand, like, the evidence that they're showing shows that, like, how much of intent do we need by Zuckerberg to, like, how much, what is the nature of the intent? These emails are going to show that they're worried about the expansion of Instagram and WhatsApp into sort of like areas that may compete with Facebook. What do we need to know from that to know that that there was some type of intent to monopolize, I guess?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question about intent, because intent is relevant to the extent that we are considering any competitive effects from the deal, what actually happened. And Chief Judge Boasberg, who's overseeing this trial, said in an earlier phase of the case at summary judgment that evidence of Facebook's intent to acquire a nascent or upstart competitor would be highly probative of whether there were any competitive effects and whether it was illegally maintaining its monopoly. So emails from Mark Zuckerberg, I mean, the one I was thinking about Instagram, he says, one of the rationales, quote, to neutralize a potential competitor, end quote. So he walks it back in another email saying, oh, I didn't mean to say we're taking out a competitor, but that was sort of his pre-edited thought.
So wait a second. So wait a second. Give me an idea. Does he send that email off, and then somebody internally, like their in-house counsel, goes, "Hey, boss, this is probably not good to have a paper trail of this."
Right, exactly. We haven't seen the in-between that caused him to send his retraction email, but I think we can guess that something like that happened, and we've seen that a lot where Zuckerberg is just sending.
Brendan, you know what? I think we're gonna ask you to call right back in if you could, because we're still getting that digital breakup. But we think if you call back in, we'll hear. It will improve. Would you mind doing that? Just sure. Call us back in on that same number. Okay, thanks. All right, bear with us, folks. We're just working on some of our technical issues.
Oh, I didn't mean take out a competitor in an anti-competitive fashion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say?
I meant on a date.
Did I say take out a competitor?
We got to grind and up our game.
Yeah. I just I didn't mean take out a competitor. I just okay. Brendan, you back there? We were just doing our impersonations of Zuckerberg walking back, his saying take out a competitor in his email.
In writing, yeah.
Right, spot on.
So we don't. Is there like? I mean, I would imagine an in-house lawyer saying, "Hey, you shouldn't put that in writing. Maybe you should walk it back." Probably didn't deliver that message to Zuckerberg via email. Would they have? Because wouldn't that be subject to disclosure?
Well, I think Meta might say that communication is privileged because it's seeking legal advice or it's legal advice being given. So we don't know what happened there, but something caused him to walk that statement back. But there's lots of others, and he makes a pretty clear and compelling case using the language of economics about how Facebook could face a death spiral if Instagram were successful in getting enough users off the platform. So that was part of the justification in his view for doing the deal. Before we
speculate on potential remedies or the outcomes of this case, why? I think there are still people. I mean, we've spoken to many people, and we've had Stoller on many times over the years. And others, ranging from Lena Khan back when she was an academic pre-FTC. What in your telling, what's problematic with this? I mean, why don't we just look at this and go, like, the guy's just doing business?
Right, yeah. So we want our markets to be free and fair because we think that the best results are delivered from competition. And I think this is something that, goes back certainly to the time when we passed the antitrust laws in 1890, but longer than that. It was in the Declaration of Independence, complaints about the king's monopolies. And I think there's a long tradition in our history that, our political freedom is tied in some way to our economic freedom. And here, even before getting to politics, you have evidence of what the FTC is showing is that Facebook has degraded its quality over time. Users now see more and more advertising. They see more content from people that you don't even follow or you're not connected with. And now Facebook is trying to use, sort of that very change in quality in its platform to say that actually we don't even have a personal social networking service anymore. Facebook is just sort of a media app where you look at content that competes against TikTok. And so that kind of strikes me as, kind of too cute. I think the FTC's evidence shows that consumers still want to have that core use case of friends and family sharing, learning what's happening with people in your life. Increasingly, they're getting something that's just commoditized, where it's increasingly just ads and junk instead of friends and family.
Okay, so wait, I just want to be clear here. I mean, on one hand, the problem with this is in many respects the same reason why we don't want a plutocracy or an oligarchy within the context of our politics. This is intimately tied to the idea of the same type of concentration of wealth and power being used in a really less than democratic way in the marketplace. But you're arguing, or I should say, Facebook, you're telling us that Facebook is now arguing that, well, we can't be considered a monopoly within this social media category because we're no longer in that category. We're just well, I guess they wouldn't say they're a publisher, but we're just a platform where people put up content.
Yeah, that's basically right.
And so their whole defense is just like, we're not what the FTC says we are. And therefore, I mean, could theoretically, I mean, could the FTC then come back and go, okay, well, then you're a monopoly of whatever, category you want to pretend you are?
Yeah, they could do that. And I think, one of the big arguments in the case is to what extent does Meta compete against TikTok? Because if TikTok is in the same market as Meta, then maybe Meta's market shares go down. And you need to have a high market share generally to be able to show that a defendant is a monopolist. So that changes the market share, makes it look like Meta's less of a monopolist. But even then, it's not clear that the FTC loses their case because it only takes Meta's market share down, according to Meta, to about 60%, which is still enough under the case law to find a monopolist. But it may not end up making all that much difference. And I think, the FTC's best comeback has been to play video testimony we saw last week from V. Pappas, who is the chief operating officer, briefly the interim head of TikTok, who said TikTok is not a social network. TikTok is just built differently. It's built on a content graph, whereas Meta's apps are built around a social graph of who you're connected to. So, I think Meta is putting a lot of eggs in that basket that it's just a content app like TikTok, and I'm not sure that that's what the evidence shows.
It's not that's relying on basically a definition of its services from like 12 or 13 years ago. Like, aren't there going to be internal documents that show their financials that contradict that very underpinning of like what they're advertising to or what they're saying to the court is their function as a site at this point? Because it's just not the case.
Yeah, I think that's what Meta is saying. I think Meta's saying that, maybe we were 12 years ago focused on this friends and family use case, but the platform is just so big now. It does so many different things. There's Facebook Marketplace where you can buy and sell. There's Reels, which is a short form video feature that competes with TikTok. There's Stories, which is, kind of copycat from Snapchat. So now that it's incorporated all these features, it's just something different. And most of the time spent on the apps are now watching video. And so Facebook or Meta's argument is, we compete with different video platforms. But that's why I would think say, it's kind of cute.
If we need my 19-year-old daughter to come and testify, I do not think she would think Facebook is a competitor with TikTok at all. But be that as it may, like, how does I can see what Facebook is doing here is they're trying to sort of like define themselves out of essentially what they're accused of. I see the point that even and the idea that if they can place themselves into a different marketplace, it's analogous to my uncle used to years and years ago was a car dealer, and he had a Chrysler dealership. And I remember when Chrysler bought the Gem Electric car company that just sold like basically golf carts and added it to their fleet so that their cafe standards would all drop. That's what they're trying to do by saying that they're competing with TikTok, that TikTok exists in the same playing field as us, and they have X amount of market share, so we can't be considered monopolists. But isn't the idea that they actually have all of these various components and leverage them also sort of create a potential accusation of a monopoly because they're sort of like vertically or horizontally leveraging their power?
Yeah, that's right. It's an economic idea that if you're a monopolist, you can extend and use that power to move into what are called adjacent product markets. So that doesn't necessarily mean that Facebook doesn't have a social networking feature anymore. It was just so dominant in that feature that now it has Stories like Snapchat. It has Reels like TikTok. It's been able to branch out into these other areas. And then the other thing you think about is, a big focus of Meta's case is switching away. Users who, let's say the Meta apps have a blackout, they go down, they don't work. Users shift their time to TikTok. But it's sort of a weird experiment because you wouldn't really say that like reading a book competes with Netflix just because you might read a book when you lose your power.
Right.
But those are the kind of arguments that Meta's making.
What's your sense at this point of the case, or is it too early to sort of get a sense of where you think this case is going to end?
Yeah, I think it's still early days. We're not even a quarter of the way through the witness list. I do think that Meta has a very big and good team of lawyers, and that they're prepared and they're doing a good job. But it's just a really close case, and that's why I think this case is at trial. On TikTok, I mentioned the testimony we heard last week. It's not a slam dunk for either side. Both sides, each side gets to score some points here. And I think cases are more likely to go to trial when the evidence is pretty balanced, and that's the kind of case that we have.
Are you surprised as a antitrust lawyer that the Trump administration is continuing these cases in what appears to be the same sort of fervor as the Biden administration did?
And while you were out, Sam, last week, there was a report that I think it was the Wall Street Journal, that Zuckerberg had called the FTC trying to cut a deal now that Lena Khan is out under the Trump administration, and offered I think a $500 million settlement. And the government was seeking tens of billions. And he was, according to the Journal, basically laughed off the call.
Well, he probably should have also offered not to wear that necklace that he's wearing around, or
a medallion,
or walking around with the skateboard, or whatever it is he's doing.
Haircut.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think they're good questions, and you have to remember these actions were actually brought by the Trump administration to begin with. Both the Google cases and the Meta case started during the first Trump administration. So there is a little bit of continuity there. And I think, the personnel that the president has put in place here, Gail Slater at DOJ, Antitrust, and Andrew Ferguson, the new chair of the FTC, they're enforcement-minded folks. They, kind of on the more aggressive side of enforcement. So, I think there's continuity there. The Wall Street Journal reporting about Zuckerberg, I thought that was super interesting, especially because the FTC was demanding money. And it's not clear to me how they get that money, whether they're trying to assess that as some sort of civil penalty under Section 5 of the FTC Act. There was a Supreme Court case a couple years ago that limited the FTC's ability to get money back when it wins an injunction. So, I do have some concerns, too, that whatever that meeting was, whatever the FTC proposal was, didn't actually involve divestment of Instagram and WhatsApp, and instead really just sought, ransom.
Right. We may see it more, if there is any discontinuity, we may see it more in the remedy phase.
Yeah.
That's right.
And is there ever been a remedy where they just force the owner of a company to buy a bunch of meme coins? Is that ever a remedy?
Yeah.
We'll be trying that one out.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that Zuckerberg feels, and this may be outside of your portfolio, but I'm curious, based upon, what you've watched so far, that Zuckerberg feels, and that reporting from the Wall Street Journal, that Zuckerberg feels like, did I go on Joe Rogan for nothing?
Right.
I mean, what about all the work I've put in on this?
Yeah, and he's doing a lot more than that. I mean, Meta donated $1 million to President Trump's inauguration. Dana White is now on the board of Meta. Meta announced
what? Wait a second. What?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Oh, well, of course.
Yeah.
Of course he would be.
I mean, he has the expertise.
That's fascinating.
He's a big tech guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all kinds of stuff like that, and I think kowtowing to the administration a little bit on content discrimination type policies. So we have to remember, I mean, Meta made the, I think, kind of incredible decision to ban the president of the United States while he was still in office from using their platforms. I think there's still a lot of feelings there about Meta limiting information about, mask skepticism during COVID or Hunter Biden's laptop. And that's what Chair Ferguson, says at a lot of these events, talking about the case is undoing the era of censorship. It's not something that we're hearing about in court because it's not really relevant to the trial. But I do think, it's in the background and it might be driving some of the decision making.
How long do you think this trial lasts? The Meta one?
So I would say at least 5 or 6 weeks. The judge wants to keep each side to 90 hours. The FTC wanted twice that time. There are some trial days reserved in June and July, so I might be on assignment into the summer, but I think 6 weeks is a good bet.
All right, well, that's great. People can follow your reporting over at Big Tech on Trial. We'll put a link to that, and you're doing dispatches, as far as I can tell, every day. and it's fascinating reading. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes. And at the very least, it's somewhat encouraging that there is a maintenance of the prosecution. I guess we got some good news, at least from the perspective of people who, from a remedy phase in the Google, the first Google trial. And I guess we'll have to wait and see whether that's carried through on the second one, as well as in the event that Meta loses the liability part of this case in theirs as well. Brendan Benedict, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right, folks, going to take a quick break, head into the fun half of the program, wherein we'll read some IMs and take your calls and also have fun.
Yes.
Folks, don't forget, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member of the Majority Report at jointhemajorityreport.com. Jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you get the free half free of commercials. Then you also get the fun half. Jointhemajorityreport.com. It is your support that makes this show possible. Left Reckoning. What's happening?
Yeah, Megan Day, writer at Jacobin. She's also doing some stuff with More Perfect Union to talk about Doge, Trump and the economy. Tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
Quick break. Fun half. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it.
Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's.
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? This me?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Libertarians. They're so stupid, though. Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-501. 1/2. 3/8.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
654 $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
Call it satire. Sam goes, it's satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the weak being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland, Majority Report.
The fun half, folks.
Fun half. Fun half. Oh, yeah. Let's do this one. This is pretty funny. This is, Trump was on Fox the other day with Rachel Campos Duffy. I feel like she's asked this question of him multiple times, right? In multiple interviews. This is not the first time she's asked him this question. And, but she followed up April 15th. I guess this is a week ago now, but we had somehow missed it. Here's Trump answering about the Epstein files. Remember, these were released, except for they weren't released.
Right. They were released as a photo op for some right-wing weirdo influencers, like binders that said Epstein files on them.
Stuff that had already been released.
It was all released. In fact, it was more redacted than stuff that had already been released.
Indeed, yep.
But this, to be fair, they did bind it. And so it was more of like a collector's item.
Exactly.
Here is Rachel Campos Duffy. What just fascinates me about this is like the level of obsession the right has with Epstein. And I suppose some people on the left as well, but the level of obsession and the conspiracy behind it, and look,
they moved on to Diddy. It's legitimately, they moved on to the P. Diddy stuff because they don't really care about the substance of it.
Trump's implicated in all
because
this stuff.
Right, if they were consistent,
but that's what I'm saying. It's fascinating because they were so hyped up on the day they were releasing that. I think I was on Piers Morgan's show.
Yeah.
And all the right wingers there were like, finally, Donald Trump's doing it. I told you he would do it. This is going to be amazing. Blockbuster. And, Benny Johnson was all like hyped up about it. And then it was just a nothing burger and they still don't pursue it. Here is Trump. Look how easy it is to shake a Fox News reporter off of the scent of a story.
Jeffrey Epstein. ¿Nos puedes dar un update?
Yeah, I would say just release it. He was somebody that was, I guess you'd have to say, notorious. Mm-hmm. And I would say release it. And I did release the full Kennedy files.
Pause it for a second. Wait a second. I would say release it. Well, A, why don't you say release it? And B, who are you saying this to? You have the ability to release it. He's just about to say in the next breath, I released the JFK files.
He's a pundit. Don't you understand? In some ways, he has ultimate authority. In other ways, he's just calling balls and strikes like he's on a talk show.
I move like a cat. I'm one thing, and then I'm another thing.
He does not move.
Go back to...
Release it. He was somebody that was, I guess you'd have to say, notorious. Mm-hmm. And I would say release it. And I did release the full Kennedy files. People said, well, maybe not everything. And I said, if anybody has a problem, go to the office. We gave them an office address, and they can look at every single piece of paper we have and other files. And as you know, the January 6th and all of that, we freed the people. They were treated so badly. There's never been, there have been some pretty bad instances, but there's probably never been anything like what happened with the people